İslam'da hırsızın elini kesmek farz mıdır?
Is cutting a thief's hand fard, religious duty in Islam?
Of course, Muslim jurists read the Quranic verse on Qat' al-Yad as because it was mentioned in the Quran, they read it as part of the hudud crimes. And, hudud literally means things that God drew a boundary around, a boundary around. So for whatever reasons, and they argue that for whatever reasons, for reasons that human beings sometimes do not know, God said, well, here's my law on this matter, and made it very clear in text. But they also at the same time argued that on the basis of many things, including the Prophet's hadith, Idra' al-Hudud bil-Shubuhat, that whenever the rights of God are concerned, doubt must always be interpreted against implementation, not in favor of implementation. And the argument that they always relied on is that this is because God can vindicate God's rights in the hereafter. But the state is obligated to vindicate human rights, حقوق العباد. So the answer from classical Islam is yes, the cutting the hands of a thief is part of Sharia law, but at the same time, Muslim jurists created so many obstacles of doubt that when you look in Islamic history, you find that this criminal punishment was rarely achieved. Thieves were often imprisoned. Less common was flogged. But contrary to popular perceptions, the Islamic civilization was not known for brutal criminal penalties. The irony of everything is that the European civilization was far more brutal in its criminal penalties than the Islamic civilization. But I really do think that this matter needs to be reinterpreted and rethought, because yes, we put obstacles like, the theft cannot be due to hunger, it cannot be due to claim of right, it cannot, the theft have to be as to concealed property, the property cannot be out and open. There are all these things that would act as shubuhat that would prevent application. But I think it is possible to reinterpret this Quranic text not to require, because in human consciousness evolves and changes. And, I grew up, I can tell you that what was acceptable to the psychology of a man or woman in the village in which I grew up in Egypt would be utterly shocking to someone who grew up in Cairo, in cosmopolitan Cairo. Now, this is in the same age, the difference between rural and urban. Human psychology that was accustomed, they didn't have guns, they relied on knives and, cutting as a fact of life. A child would see the chicken being prepared, and the goats and the sheep and being prepared, being slaughtered to be prepared for meals. Most children would have to learn how to slaughter themselves. The idea of seeing human flesh cut or severed didn't shock the conscience, because that's the epistemology of the age, the system of knowledge of the age. Things have changed, and something like cutting the hand of a thief would shock the conscience today. And we no longer have institutions of social welfare where someone can lose their hand and they have an entire family to take care of them, including uncles and cousins and neighbors and, you know, the clan, the tribe. Today, you create a huge social liability if you cut someone's hand and you leave them incapable of earning a living. Basically, then the state will have to provide it for them for the rest of their lives. In addition to repulsing people away from Allah's faith, because people will their sensibilities is that this is barbaric and cruel, and it is. I don't believe that Allah just revealed the Quran to freeze the development of time to the period of the Prophet ﷺ. I believe that Allah coded the language of the Quran so that it speaks to every age. And when I read these same verses in the Quran today, I read iqta'u to mean be resolute, show real resolve in standing up to theft. And when you and you understand quite why, because when you look at the difference between advanced countries and backwards countries today, it's often corruption. In advanced countries, even the irony is, you know, you can rely on doing business and going to your job, and there's less corruption. But in backwards countries, corruption is so bad that it saps any real developmental potential for these countries. And then what Allah says in the Quran makes a lot of sense. You know, be resolute. But does Allah wanted to say, you know, you're limited to cutting off the hands? I don't think so. I think Allah is saying, you know, don't be weak when it comes to making a stand against sarqa, because it is the undoing of your entire civilization, the undoing of your entire ummah. It is the undoing of your generations of people. When sarqa is so widespread around them, they lose heart, they lose hope, they lose faith. So yeah, that's what I think.